As you can see, I know there are some people here who've showed up. Bill Bryant was my instructor at the school, and I tell people this all the time. There's some professors who kind of gave me all of the head knowledge, and Bill gave me a lot of that as well, but he gave me the heart knowledge more than anything, and I think you guys can see that. Bill is the person who showed me that preachers are real people too, and that, to be effective at a congregation, you gotta pour your heart into a church. You gotta pour your heart into the ministry. And so I hope you guys continue to listen. Bill's one of the best men that I know, and I continue to think about him often, and I'm glad he's here. So give it up for Bill Bryant.
After being around him more, I'll just ask my one request. Pray for Ashley more than what you are. Just kidding. All right, do we have the copies of the second outline? Okay. You might remember somebody got it already. You might remember the 3 T's? Here you go. Take mine. Time, tears, and talk. I don't care how, how prepared you are, the human body dealing with pain. Think about that. Why do you think it hurts so bad? That's a question people ask. Why does it hurt so bad? Why does it hurt? Why does losing someone hurt as bad as it does? I mean, it's devastating. Why? Think about that. Why does it hurt? What's that? The human in us. That's a good start. What else? What's that? Well, we want that person to be with us. If we love somebody, how long do we want them to be with us? Well, forever. But think about. My answer comes from the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verses 26 and 27. We are made in the image of God. Now, it's amazing the instinct that animals have. How in the world a bird can leave and get up in the air and follow the earth and fly 2,000 miles to an island in the ground? I don't understand how they can do that, but God made them do that. Their animals can do a lot of things. You ever seen a dog grieve? I mean, they can do things. They have a natural affection. But beyond all of that, who are we as human beings? We're the crowning achievement. We have a soul. It's different. What's that soul give us an opportunity to do? We're moral creatures. It's not just instinct. We are made in the image of God. We have this great capacity to progress into being what? As a human being, that was your first answer, with a kind of a divine side to us. What did God design the human being to be? Think about that. Most people don't think. The other night, Wednesday night, I was talking to the class. You can buy a $2,000 phone. What would it do? What would it not do? Can you imagine somebody, an old couple, buying a $2,000 phone? All they're going to do is just make phone calls with it? What's stupid about that? It's designed for what? For so much more. What are we designed for? Think about that. God designed us capable of doing what and being what? What kind of people did He design us to be? Loving. How loving can we be? If you let love grow, what's the greatest commandment? The first commandment. Love the Lord your God. What's the second? Love your neighbor. So, I mean, the main emotion of life, or whatever you want to call it, is love. We're loving creatures. And you have that natural affection. You look in the mirror. You look out there, and if you're a guy. I still remember the day my daughter was born, December 1st, 1983. I was in Cincinnati, Ohio, Christ Hospital. She was born by C-section. And I got to see her, it went pretty quick. And then it was 11:30, stood out there looking at her. The doctor came by, Bill, you can take those scrubs off. You don't have to wear them. I didn't even know. I was oblivious. It's my daughter. Had all those babies, but that daughter was my daughter. How did I look at her? As my daughter. When, as a mother, they put that baby on your arms after you deliver, what do you feel? Isn't that close? How God made you capable of that. What will a human being do? What will a mother do as a sacrifice for her children? What sacrifices will she make for that child? I mean, the closest thing to God to love is a mother's love. Because what would they do? Stay up all night long? Which kid was it that never slept? The first one didn't sleep. He's now a doctor in Memphis. A couple of years ago when his daughter, how did you put up with me, Mama? He's having to go through the same thing she went through. How often did y'all sleep? Not much. But you still had to get up and do that all night long. That's what. And how about this? How about sometimes there's a guy at Wooddale. Well, he just left and went back to Florida, kind of retired. He made a promise to his wife that she would never go to a nursing home. Her mind went early, and her body also went after that. He kept her at home. She was in a bed for 8 years. That's not what most men do. What do most men do? Farm them out. I'm not going to put up with that. Why would he do that? Why would he do that? That's what love does. How much sacrifice are people willing to make for love? I mean, even soldiers. The love of country. What will soldiers do? That's heroic and inspiring and all that. So we're capable of all these things. We're capable of this and that. But we're all different people. And I wanted to make a comment on the last one when you're looking at these different stages. What's the last one? Acceptance. How long does it take? I mentioned what the American Psychological Association says, anywhere from 2 years. But people are different. People grieve for different lengths of time in different ways. I've got 2 daughters. When their mother died, the one was 16, the one was 20. Which one do you think got over it earlier, as far as going on? And used her mother's, the way she died and all that kind of, as a something to inspire her to better things? The youngest did. The oldest was brilliant. Had a sharp mind. I mean, she got the academic award, but she got a nursing degree. She went on to UT, got a master's degree in nursing at UT, and got straight A's. Still got the academic award. She still struggles in life over her mother's death. That's been 20 years. Why? The rate of which people accept things is different. And so that behooves us, if we're going to get involved in dealing with things, what must we understand about people as we help them go through the grieving process? Again, what we just said, no two people, or not even in the same family. Some people accept, some people have different skills, some people have different personalities. Anybody here a good mechanic? Anybody know any master? My dad was a master mechanic. He could fix anything. He's wondering today, what happened to me? Anybody ever remember Smokey and the Bandit? Remember Jackie Gleason and the dumb son? He said, ain't no way you can be the fruit of my loin. And I'll get home and smack your mom in the mouth. Anybody remember that? My dad told me that line before that movie ever came out. He said, ain't no way. Ain't no way you can be my boy and be so dumb when it comes to mechanical stuff. Who fixes things around the house? Go ahead, you can tell them. Okay, there you go. I can preach, but they better not break. I'll have to get a ride home. I mean, that's just not what I can do. Am I less of a person? What does that mean? We all have strengths and abilities and capacities to do certain things over the course of others. Now, the hardest part for some, and this is a challenge, is that when you're dealing with someone, maybe you went through that process and you went through it more quickly than others. The hardest part of that is when people linger on and they need to go on. When that last stage of acceptance, when do you begin to see signs of acceptance? When they get out and start doing things. Let's use the example of losing a spouse. You know one of the biggest problems of getting out, if you've lost your spouse? Your identity has changed. Before you were a couple. Now you're the odd person out. When you go get together for couples at church, we have a senior citizens group. That we go to Shoney's and eat pig out one about every 2 months on a Saturday. But the ones who have lost their wives, where do they sit? Everybody else has got couples. So if you don't have a spouse anymore and you're around people who do, Do you understand that when you walk into a place, your identity has changed? Do you still need to get out? Yes. Still need to go out with people? Yes.
In that scenario, I become invisible. When there's gathering, my spouse is not here anymore.
Yeah.
There's a gathering, but I'm invisible to these people
Yeah.
because I'm no longer.
And what would keep you from being invisible? Understanding where she is. It's different for her. You have to make them feel comfortable. But see, we don't automatically see. That's the reason why this workshop is so important. If you would become students, I don't care what your age is, if you only got 5 years left, it's just this one area of church work and service. If you said, this is one thing, because people are losing stuff all the time and are hurting, one of the biggest areas where people hurt, I'm going to learn to be able to help and be more responsive. You think the Lord would want that? Could you do good? And you're not sure you can. So I'm just saying, educating yourself as to what the process is of grief. That's what this is about. First, to learn some things, how do you cope, and then what's it got to do with the church, and what's it got to do with me? Why does God allow all this pain and suffering and heartbreak? So understanding those things. So the question is, here's somebody that needs to get out there. Anybody not know how to swim? Okay, I can teach you if you want. Anybody learn how to swim by being thrown in? How quickly did you take to water? Was that the preferred way? I didn't learn how to swim until I was 18 years old. I'd already graduated from high school. There was two guys at Carnes that were elders, Brother Duncan and Brother Huber. Brother Duncan was, he had a son, he was an elder, he had a son that was named David. We were good friends. One Wednesday night, he invited me to go swimming with him the next day. I said, sure. But the fact that he invited me, he assumed I could swim. And so I thought, might as well learn. Has a swimming pool, that's a good spot instead of the lake and all that. So he said, I got there already dressed out, and go ahead and get in. And here's one of these pools. It's about a third of it's 3 foot, kiddie pool. Then there's this rope. And then there's the dive. It goes right to 8 feet. Now, 8 feet may not seem like a very, but if you can't swim, you can drown in 8 feet of water. And so I got in there, kind of paddled around in the shallow part, kicking his foot, and the football went across the rope. And so what am I going to do? I got out of the edge and splashed in the water. Trying to get the football over the deep where he could get it out. He comes in behind me, didn't see me, and put his foot in my and pushed me in. He thought that was the best drowning I could ever see. Till I finally got to the other side. I saw the drain along the way. I got to the other side. He said, man, I can't swim. I mean, what? What are you doing here? But you know what he did for me? And I've taught other people how to swim this way. He got some goggles. He said, let's go to the shallow end. And so here's what I want you to do. Get the shallow end 3 foot and go back and forth with the goggles on the 3 foot section. And just did it probably 10 or 12 times. Now let's get closer to the deep end. And finally said, hey, can you do that? And I want you to do it. Here's the rope that separates the deep end. Do that. Within 30 minutes, he had me diving down to the deep end. What did he do? He gave me an easy way to do what? Because what's the bad part about learning how to swim? Fear of water. If you overcome the fear of water, guess what happens? So what did he do? And I've taught probably another dozen people how to swim, but that's an easy way. And so that's what you try to do with people, bring them along, working through that, except if they've never been out, who've stayed at home for a year and a half, trying to get them out just with you. I'm just saying you got to get it started. How many of you learned how to swim watching a video? Would that be enough? How about ladies birthing a baby? Watching a video, give you a full explanation of what you're about to endure? What's missing? How painful is it? When my daughter, the nurse, the brilliant one, said, what are you going to do for that? Well, I'm going to get the epidural. Wasn't worried a bit. I got there after she got there. She was begging for more pain relief. That's all you're going to get. Because how long and how hard is labor? What's the bad thing about being a mother and you got a guy who doesn't understand what you're going through? Does he sympathize with you? But after you've had 2 or 3 children, what do you now know about labor? A man might be able to visualize it in his brain, but when do you know that you know? when you have the baby. When do you know that you know about grief? You can read about it all day long, but until it happens to you. And that's the way it is in faith, is it not? In faith, there are things we learn from this. We learn the principles of this, do we not? But then what does God do to give us the opportunity to put them into practice? You know what it's called? Life. Life. How does the Sermon on the Mount conclude? He concludes with the parable. The wise man built his house. The foolish man, and what happened? The foolish man's house goes splat. What's he saying? He didn't say if storms come. What did he say? When they come. I don't care who you are, how much money you got, how smart you are, your help group, storms will come into your life, even as Christians. And then what must you do with it? You have to learn to do what? Apply the Christian principles. And for someone that you're trying to get to accept things, tell me a virtue that you would need to help this person. You got through it pretty quickly. Give me a virtue that you would need to help this person through the acceptance stage. You got through it quickly. Give me a virtue that would be helpful. Starts with P. Patience. Why? Because they didn't pick it up like you did. My wife, fortunately, when she fixes, she shows me how to do it, hoping I can do it this myself the next time, and so forth. I'm just saying, how important is patience? Give me a passage that shows the importance of patience in the scheme of things. James 1, verse 2, count it all joy, my brethren, have all these various trials, knowing that the trying of your faith worketh patience, but let patience have her perfect work, that you might be complete and entire, lacking in nothing. So how high up the chain is patience? How do you get it? How many of you prayed this prayer last night? Lord, I don't care what you got to do. I want all the patience I can get. Throw it on me. Anybody prayed that prayer lately? Why not? So what does a God do? Just suddenly, oh, that feels good. Okay, you need some help here? No, that's not the way it works. What does he do? A neighbor moves in that you can't stand. Their kid screams all night long in the apartment. Then what do you have to learn? Or if you're a preacher, a family moves in. This guy can never be made happy for anything. He's your biggest critic. What do you have to learn? So see, God does that to us. There are principles we have to learn how. Let's go back to school days. Anybody take algebra? Or did algebra take you? When can you do algebra? When do you know math? I did this. I don't know if you remember this question. Years ago, I started asking it in class. When do you know that you know algebra? How many remember word problems? What's so great about word problems? I'm going to give you the same question I ask every student, every new bunch of students at school. Oh, there's only one student got it in 10 years. I don't know. You don't remember this, do you? Probably came after you. Okay, we're in Knoxville, Tennessee, or Lenore City. It's 900 miles to Miami. A train gets on a track going to Miami at 50 miles an hour from Knoxville. At the same time, at 10 o'clock that morning, a train leaves Miami on the same track coming towards Knoxville at 40 miles an hour. 900 miles away. When do they hit? If you know math, you can do that in your head. Any algebra scholars? Probably not. Why is that so hard? Let me do it this way. 50x plus 40x equals 900. So those of you who remember, if you had 50x and 40x, what have you got? 90x. 90x equals 900. What do you do with a 90? Divide both sides. What's 900 divided by 90? Or not 10? What's the answer? It's 10 hours. See how easy that is?
That's when my math teacher told me she never wanted to see me in class.
See what's different about adding 50x and 40x equals 900 and asking you the word problem? What does it require you to do? You have to set it up. And that's what faith does. God allows what? I call them the word problems of life. And you to do what with it? Open up the scriptures and apply this. Figure out how this works in there to get the solution that God wants. Is that true or not? That especially when it comes to grief. So looking at the handout again, there's time. We've already talked about that. It's going to take time to do that. But you have to, like swimming, you have to get in the water. You have to be dealing with grief head on. Because if you just ignore it, what's going to happen? Just act like it doesn't exist. You're in denial stage. You're just going to work yourself silly. Will it last a while? It's still going to be there. What do you have to do? This is the biggest mistake I made when I started. Because I got, okay, I'm not going to quit preaching. I threw myself into the work at Wooddale. I mean, I wore myself out and everybody else. Working 80, 90 hours a week. I slept when I finally fell over the couch. I didn't sleep in the bedroom. In the bedroom, I had probably gone there 2 times in 6 months. I became a couch sleeper. And I would go to sleep when I just absolutely fell out. Was that good for me? That went on for months. There are several times I had to go to Memphis to do funerals. And there was a certain exit in Nashville, the west side of Nashville, that was the exit to go to Vanderbilt Hospital. I would not go through Nashville. I would take the bypass around. You know why? Because you know what that exit would be for me? A trigger to do what? The tears would flow. I'm just going to avoid that. And then along about May or June, my daughter said, Dad, because she had just turned 17, wanted to go to Nashville, to Vanderbilt. She made friends with the ER nurse. A lady in her 20s, just adopted her. I want to go see her. She kept up with me. I want to go eat lunch with her. Are you coming or not? I've been asking you for months. No. Well, I'm going to drive by myself. Okay, I'll go. But I'm not going to the hospital. We'll just eat down there. If you know where Vanderbilt is, there's a place down the hill you can go eat. And we ate. And she said, Bill, everyone wants to see you. We're there for 6 months. I said, I'm not going. You need to, Bill. You need to. You need to. I started crying already. Okay. And Rachel was, Daddy, go. Go, please. And so we went up there. I was there for 2 hours. You know how much crying I did? Seeing the room. Seeing the nurses. They said, we used to fight over who got to take care of you two because y'all were so sweet. She had such a good attitude. See how much you cared for her and all the things you did. We just, so we talked about it for 2 hours. You know how I felt on the way home? Better. It was good for me. What do you think it was good for me? I had to force to deal with it. And I found out it was going to be helpful. And I thought, man, I may do that again. So I began to take road trips. Anybody love Charleston, South Carolina? I lived there twice, counting with their name. Rachel and I made a trip to Charleston. You know why Charleston? Because we used to live there. Happy times. Before, I couldn't even think about Charleston. But we went to Charleston, to the apartments where we lived. As soon as I drove in the parking lot, talk about it, just outpouring of emotion and tears. I cried for a long time. But on the way back, I could think of Charleston. I did the same thing for Cincinnati. I did the same thing for where we lived in Dover, New Hampshire. Each time I did that, that helped me. Why? What did I learn? What did I force myself to do? To deal with it, to face it. She's not coming back. We had happy times. That was the life that we had before. We enjoyed that. Move on. So I call it, I had to touch the bases to get home. And so basically, in principle, why would that be helpful for anybody? To face it, here's what's going to happen, to start doing the things that you do, and you don't forget them. You're still remembering that as you're facing grief and letting the pain come over you, even if it brings tears. You deal with it. She's not here. She's not coming back. She died this horrible death. All this other stuff. To face it head on, what would that deal? How would that help you over the course of time? Because you're accepting reality. There's a process you have to go through. The tears will come. You do that over the course of time, and you will be made better. I can't explain all the dynamics of how all that works, but it's like learning how to swim. You got to get in the water, learn to deal with it. You have to face. There were triggers throughout Knoxville. My mother died at UT Hospital. My wife worked for UT Hospital. I had a lot of members go to UT Hospital. Do you think that was a trigger? Yeah, it was a trigger. I sometimes sit in the parking lot and cry and then go in. But you still have to face it. I eventually moved here, got back in my bedroom. Why? I eventually moved her clothes out of the closet. Why? Because that's what you have to do to put life together and go back on. That's the biggest mistake I made. I'd probably delayed everything at least 9 months, just trying to act like a hero and ignore everything. So I'm just saying there are things you can do. And then people started getting me to talk about her. Why does talking about someone help? What does that do? How can that be beneficial to somebody? What's that? They're not forgotten. Do you want them to be forgotten? No. You want their name to live on, the experiences, the life. And you're talking, what are you doing? You're continuing that on. And what does talking do? In anything. Your 16-year-old come in last night, and her boyfriend left her high and dry. What do you need to do with her? If you're a parent that's close enough, let's sit down, and normally it's the mother, what she say, let's talk about it. And she'll cry and moan and groan, my life is ruined. Not really. But you let them talk and do that. Why? That's the human experience. Those are emotions that God made us that way. Did Jesus ever grieve? We're going to kind of jump ahead. Give me an example of his grief. He's identified in Isaiah chapter 53 as a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief. When did he ever show grief for his own? How about the night that he was betrayed? After instituting the Lord's Supper, what did he do? Went to the Garden of Gethsemane, told his disciples, stay here, watch and pray that you don't enter temptation. He took 3 more with him, the inner circle. We'll talk about that in a minute. Went a little bit farther and say, be here with me. And then how did he pray? What was it like? What was that experience like? Was he sorrowful? You better believe he was sorrowful. Luke's account says he was in agony. Why? Why? What was going to happen to him? Now, I told you, you can mourn your death before it happens. There's an example of that. What was going to happen to him the next day? Die the most horrible, painful, emotional, physical death that anybody on this earth ever suffered unjustly for us, paying our sin debt. How tough was that? Why do you want someone close by? But every time he came back, what were they doing? They were sleeping. That's what the church is doing today, kind of figuratively speaking. We're sleeping. But he was grieving. He was grieving. We'll look ahead here in one of the next lessons or so. And what's the shortest verse in the Bible? Where is it found? John 11 verse. What was the occasion of that? Somebody had died. Been dead 4 days. He came back. He let the news of Lazarus' sickness. He let him die. Then it go on. Why did he let him die? Because what was he going to do? Raise him from the dead. Why did he cry? There's twice a minute. He groaned in the spirit. Think about that expression of grief. Groaning in the spirit. Here's the Lord. He knows what he's going to do. He sees the grief on the faces of Mary and Martha, and it tears them apart emotionally. Why? Why? Because he's a man. You ever cry because you see somebody else grieve? You ever have tears of sympathy? Happens all the time. God made us that way. Here's God on earth in the flesh, expressing his grief, seeing the grief, and crying, weeping. But he knows what he's going to do. What does it show about God? And his view towards us when we cry and when we grieve. He cares. Knowing he is there, and Hebrews 4 says something about the sympathetic priest that we have. What's he like? What kind of priest they would? Now then, what attitude can we have as we enter the bold, I keep saying it, as we enter the throne of grace? We can come with boldness. Why? He knows. He knows. If you're a 4-year-old hurt, you fell off your tricycle, or if you're a big boy bicycle, and you skinned your leg on the street, whose lap do you want to be in? What would she say? Here's what my mama said. Mama knows. Mama knows. Still hurts, but what did that do for me and my brothers and sisters, or for you? Why is it comforting? She's not feeling the pain physically, but you're her little boy. She loves you. She hates to see you hurting. And she says, Mama knows. Knowing that How helpful is that for a 4-year-old? How helpful is that for a 44-year-old who's lost a loved one? Heaven knows. Heaven knows. Heaven knows. And the scriptures tell us about that. So aren't the scriptures wonderful? But those principles have to be taken in and embraced and lived and applied even in the hardest circumstances of life and grief. So what's talking do? Look at the very bottom of the sheet. Talking is helpful in grieving because it helps individuals process complex emotions like sadness and anger. It helps to maintain, as you said, a connection with a loved one through shared memories. It helps to gain comfort and support from understanding friends and Christians. See, that's where you come in. When you learn some principles and you show up with someone who's lost a loved one, and it's a year and a half later, they just want to be with somebody, how will those, well, tears can help, your tears as well, but how again will the talking help? What would you tell? What will talking do? What will talking do? What will talking do? What will talking do? Think about this. If you got a pressure in a tank that needs to come out before you take it somewhere, say it's about 100 pounds. Here's someone that's an electrician, deals with industrial application. Here's a tank you got to empty. What do you got to do before it could be dangerous? How do you vent it off? There has to be some opening. How do you vent off the horrors of loss? There's 2 ways to do it. Tears and talk. I can't explain all the physiological, all the dynamic things that happen, but God made us that way for a reason. We're made in the image of God. We have this great capacity to love. How deep and how long-lasting and what can what can it get to? How important are relationships in the human endeavor? I like to do teaching for teens and help them. You know what's the dangerous part about marriage? About dating that leads to marriage, if it's not the right person. So who should they date? I'll go through this process, but so forth. But when you're talking through all these things, when you think about the things that come out of your head and out of your mouth, talking helps explain who you are and where you stand. And if you were going with a doctor and you got a headache, what kind of question do you think he would ask? Why you got the headache? Well, it could be a tumor. It could be because of something that happened to me about 2 months ago. A monumental thing that people in my church are still shocked I did. I had these headaches for 2 or 3 days. I gave up Mountain Dew. That's a whole lot better than a brain tumor. The doctor would say that. It could be simple, but see, there are things that happen. How will a doctor find out what's going on? You got to ask questions. But what will talking do for someone that's learned to listen? Yet at that point where you can now start talking about it, it oozes out the what? You do that over the course of time, and what you get there better. So I'm just saying, the tears, the talk, the sooner you get into that, the sooner you get to the other side. I can't explain all the dynamics. Those of you who love to study, you can figure it out and send me a note how that all works, but I know it works. Works for everybody. God made us that way for some reason. That's the way we are. Questions? 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 We got a longer time this time, about 20 minutes to ask questions and comments.
I don't really have a question. I'm sorry. I don't really have a question so much, but I guess it is kind of a question, but for me, I just feel like sometimes that I'm wired to bottle it up and keep it in. Do you think that God, for some reason, designed men or something to bottle up their emotions and their griefs and their sorrows and not to vent?
When you think about who you are as a person, what influences who you are in life? Who you are today? What influences came there? Does genetic have anything to do with that? Your mom and dad, your traits in certain things? Yes, what else has an influence in that? What's that? Life does. What if you had a run of a lot of bad things happen to you? And nobody's there. And you learned the lesson, nobody's going to ever take care of me. I don't have anybody to turn to. It's all about me, and I might as well keep my mouth shut. If that's the way you've been raised up, maybe you had parents. I know people over the years, Christians, who had parents who were not there for them. What they basically had was not a mother and father. It was a filling station to get food and clothing and all that kind of stuff. There was no nurturing, no caring, no concern. What do you think the impact of that child would be growing up? Not having the nurturing that it needs. How willing would they be to talk? Or if you have a run of people that you tell things to, and they blab it to everybody, what would that do to you? Well, that'll be the last time I say anything to him or anybody. I'm just saying there are a lot of things that can input as to where you are and how willing you are to talk. Yes, Jesse?
I think one of the things is once you expose, talking means you have a weakness. And what do people do with weaknesses? They use it against you.
Yeah.
And especially when you're a father, when you're a husband, what are you supposed to be for the house? You're supposed to be the rock, right? You're supposed to be the foundation. And so oftentimes a lot of men say the moment they've exposed themselves to their wife in a weakness that they have, they see them differently.
Those of you that are older, what was a typical man like back in 1935? He was hard-nosed. What did he talk? How much emotions did he share? How many times your dad put you on his couch, on his lap, and say, "I love you, darling"? Anybody else have experiences like that? Why was it like that? It's not like that as bad today, but still yet that mindset is because in a society or where you're expected, say you have a father that says, "Don't cry, don't be weak, be a man. You ain't hurt, run it off." All you get is sternness all your life. What do you think your communication style will be like? Why do you want to expose your weakness? Just keep your mouth shut. That way people won't know. If you open your mouth, they're going to find out. Just don't say anything. I'm just saying there are all kinds of reasons. But see, what did God design to be the vehicle through which our weaknesses can be exposed and made better? What's that? The church. The church is what God designed. How important is fellowship? We're going to mention that the next time. How important is fellowship in a church? Oh, what is fellowship outside of a dinner? What's fellowship? Can you imagine fellowship without? How do you know you got good fellowship? Look at Acts chapter 4 real quick. Acts chapter 4. I just want you to read this privately. But what was the church in Jerusalem like? Read it on your own, real quick. Soak it in. What were they like? The church in Jerusalem. Verses 32 to 37. Read it on your own. What's that? They were involved. They got their hands dirty in the lives of each other. And needs were met. Some people were poor, really poor. They were destitute. I mean, can you imagine logistically the problem? On the day of Pentecost, people came from where? All over. You think some stayed? Well, I got my debit card. It's connected to my bank back home. I got wherewithal to take. You think that they wanted to stay? Why? They're members of the Lord's church. How'd they make it? Who got them a job? What do you think fellowship was like of that church? Because everybody, the Jews, had turned against you. I mean, you leave the Jewish system and become a Christian, you paid the price. How close-knit do you think they were? The church is designed to do what we said before. The Lord can't be here. Lord, help me, help me. He's not going to show up in person in the flesh. He's going to send who? That's what the church is designed to do. What's AA good for? AA does some good. What's it designed? Who's it designed to help? Alcoholics. What do? Hi, I'm Bill. I'm an alcoholic. You know, you got a mentor. Or what do you call that person you got to report to? What's that? A sponsor. Got to meet with him so many times. If you start to feel bad, call me. I mean, they got a network of support, and that's helpful. The church is designed to be the greatest support group in all the world. To help what kind of problem? Any kind of problem. But to do that, you have to interact. So give me a definition of fellowship. I'm going to give you a 2-word definition of fellowship. If you don't remember anything else, here's Billy Bryant's definition of fellowship. Love applied. You can say you love somebody, but when do you see it? Involved with other people. How many verses can you think of in the Bible that talk about one another? Christianity is a one another religion. How many can you think about? Confess your faults one for another, pray for one another, admonish one another, forgive one another. There's at least 16. Christianity is the one another religion, and every single one of those can be satisfied in a worship service from 9:30 to 10:30. Right? No. When do you satisfy those one another passages? Outside the church. What's the problem? We're not getting together. Outside the church, why not? What keeps us from being involved in fellowship? What's that? That's one of them. I got a lesson. I could do it now. No, a lesson. Fears that hinder fellowship. Fears that hinder. You know what the first one is? It relates to what we're talking about. The fear of being known. People finding out you're not who you think you are. And so you know what we do? What I call it? We wear masks at church services. What's a mask do? It hides who you really are. You know when a mask doesn't work? When you're right there close, look, you got it a mask. And so if you keep people in the church at bay, at a distance, at arm's length, what do they not find out about you? You cuss every now and then. You slip up. Maybe you're not as good at home. Maybe you growl at your wife and your kids all the time. If you let them close to you, they're going to see you as you are. And they won't like you. And the word will get out. That's not what the church is designed to do with people who are shortcomings in their life. What it's supposed to do. Not bring out the worst, but do what? Bring out the best in people. How? Because in the church, when somebody becomes a Christian or tries, I accept you as you are. I know you're not perfect. No one is. But what's the goal of church life? To get better. Finish this verse. All scripture is given inspiration of God, profitable for doctrine, reproof, that the man of God may be thoroughly equipped for every. What would be some good works? Helping me get better would be one. And if I help anybody else get better, how do you do that? By letting people help you and by offering your help in what kind of way? Sometimes you mess up. What kind of attitude do you need to have? Give me a Bible example, a directive. If anybody's overtaken in a fault, you which are spiritual, go seek to restore such one in a spirit of what? Meekness and gentleness, lest you too be. What does that mean? When you go talk to Brother Al, you find out he's got some problems. Al, what in the world are you doing? Well, how do you deal with it? Nobody likes to be screamed at. What's the attitude that you have? What's going on? We're here to help you, not here to shame you. And that's what the church is supposed to be doing, helping each other. And see, you can hear the sermons here, but you need to see it lived out. And so therefore, how important is this concept of forgiveness? It means everything. Because as a Christian, when you come into the Lord's church, you are forgiven of what? Of everything. When you get to the point maybe you're helping somebody out in their marriage, what do you help them understand? As a Christian, here's a couple, you're older, here's a young couple struggling in marriage, been married 5 years, and they hit that rough spot. What do you tell them? Are there Christian principles that apply? See, that's what the church is designed to do, but the first thing you got to do is let yourself lay it bare before people. That's what. So if you have fellowship meals, what should be the end result of fellowship meals, ultimately? Now, it's good to be close to the church, but I guarantee you, in every congregation, there are people that you can get closer to than other places. Is it wrong to have an inner circle of friends? Did Jesus have an inner circle of friends? What were their names? Peter and James and John. What would an inner circle of friends do? Someone who's close to you, who's won your friendship, that you know, hey, they're not going to tell the bad things. They're here to help. How can they help? When something breaks, who do you call? You got this close. If you've got close friends that are faithful people, how valuable are they? That's what the church should have. Because based on what's going on, if somebody found out here, let's say, Kelly, how old are you? 50? 40? How old? 49. See, how I almost got it. 49. He finds out in 2 days he's got a tumor. Who here can help him? Anybody here help him? What's he going to go through? You might know. Who would be the best position to help him? Somebody's got cancer. Why would he trust them? They've been there. They've done that. They've gone through it. They've gone through all the camera. And they survived. What do they offer him? Four-letter word starts with H. Hope. I can get better too because they did. What's it going to be like? It's going to be hard. I'm not going to tell you any different. Those sessions, you're going to puke your guts out. Food that you love now, chocolate. You'll hate chocolate. No, not chocolate. There's going to be all kinds of things that will hurt if you're living life as a human being. And so, we can kind of look ahead. What's the passage in 2 Corinthians chapter 1 about? God is the God of all comfort who does what? Who comforts us in every situation that we might, the comfort that we've got from God, we can do what? We help other people with that. Because we've been there. You want to listen to someone who's experienced. When I can't fix something, I talk to someone who's experienced at home. She helps me and she doesn't make fun of me. Because there are other things I do well, right? Shake harder. But I'm just saying, what's the church supposed to be? We're not a museum for saints. We're a hospital for sinners. That's what it is. We're a hospital for sinners. We're broken people. All of us, every one of us, have things that God does not like. Who's going to help us be better? See, that's where the fellowship comes in. And so letting people get close to you, those are people that, if they know what they're doing, can help you see why. What happened to cause this situation? When you got this problem here, does the Bible reveal any steps that lead to failure? Principle? Does the Bible reveal any steps that lead to success? Yes. Well, why does the Bible have all these characters to begin with? Why don't it just list the rules? Thou shalt do this, thou shalt not do that. Here are the rewards if you do what God says. Here are the punishment if you don't. Why not just leave it at that? That's not what he did. He wove the plan of human redemption to the lives of people like you and me to inspire us to do what? What's Romans 15, verse 4? The things written before time are written for our learn that we through the patience and comfort of the Scriptures might have hope. So you got brothers who've wronged you. Where'd he go? Give me a Bible character. I love Joseph. Anybody else love Joseph? How'd he end up? What'd he have to endure? When he told that guy in prison, remember me, and 3 days later he got the call from Pharaoh, right? No. He languished on, and finally the day came. I know somebody who can tell you a dream, and where did he end up? And then the day came, his brother showed up. They didn't know who he was. Can you imagine the shock? Anybody here ever say, uh-oh? You think there was an uh-oh among those boys? He's now in command. That's our brother, the one who's sold in slavery, and look where he is. Are we in trouble? And there's a few things he did to test them, but what was the end result? Jacob's still alive. Daddy's still alive. Bring him down here. By the time you get to Genesis chapter 50, the worst thing that could happen happened. Daddy died. Now why are they worried? Well, he wasn't going to be mean to us while Daddy was alive, but now he's gone. Guess what? We're in trouble, are we? What did Joseph say? You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. You think he went through grief through all that? Sure he did. We're designed to help each other. That's what the church is supposed to be. And the sooner we learn to help meet each other's needs and help people along to get better and better, to learn to serve, the better off the church will be. We will, if take an average congregation, how many you have, 170? If you're even going to have the people here that learn how to serve and was willing to do that, and they were willing to have a family, that's what the church is supposed to be, a family. If you acted like family and lived like family, took care of each other, and somebody came in and saw that, what do you think the drawing power would be? I want to be a part of that. Why? Because everybody wants to be accepted as they are and start there. That's what people are. That's why God made us. So the church is the best organization in all the world to help us through every situation, especially including grief. We've got time for, we got 6 minutes left. Then we're going to go eat. I hope you got beans and taters. Just kidding.
When I think of Mary and Martha, you go back to the death of Lazarus. Why, they asked Jesus, why weren't you there?
Yeah.
You could have stopped this.
Yeah.
And I think it's the number one question when people are going through a tough time. They challenge God with, why me?
Yeah.
And I remember Teresa Hampton used to have this, Teresa diagnosed with MS, early 20s. She reframed that question to, why not me? We always think very selfishly, why me? Why this person? Why not me? And Jesus was strengthening them. You think about all the loss they were going to have to face when Jesus died.
Yep.
I think about the grief that the apostles went through when they had to lose Jesus, who they were with for 3.5 years, who changed their lives completely. How did that help them in their ministry later? But the story of Lazarus, going back to it, was that a teaching ground?
When you look at, my answer is look at verse 15 in John chapter 11. Open your Bible to John chapter 11, verse 15. Why did he let Lazarus sleep? Well, we'll go wake. No, he's dead. What do you tell the disciples? I'll read it. I'm glad for your sakes that I was not there, that you may believe. That you may believe. Believe what? So which is better off, knowing the end of the story? Can you imagine what it was like being there? I know sometimes, wouldn't it be great to go back to a time machine? That'd be one of the 10 events I wanted to see. I want to see the look on people's faces. Lazarus, had to call out his name. Why? Everybody else would be come. Lazarus, come forth. There he is in all those linens. You take it off of him. How'd you like to have Lazarus over for dinner the next week? What kind of question would you ask him? What was it like? You think he was popular? Sure he was. What do you think the sisters were saying when they saw him? Now, they could have avoided it all. Jesus cured him. But how much better off were they after he died and was brought back? What did they now know about Jesus they didn't know before? What had they learned about Jesus in the way it played out? Here's one thing they learned. He cares. He cares. Look at him crying over me. And secondly, what did he do? Power over the grave. Lazarus, can you imagine that miracle and what everybody saw? So if you measure it, he had a faith meter. From the morning that they had started to that night, what happened to his faith? Of those disciples, do you think they remembered that? It's still there for 2,000 years for us to read. Through death, when he asked the first one, do you believe in the resurrection? Oh, I believe in it. I guarantee you, after Jesus did that, the resurrection meant a whole lot more to her than it ever did before that conversation started. Because that's what experiences do in life. They help us to grow. Our time is up. I want to ask, would you lead a prayer? Let me get out of the way here.